challenges, security, economic transformation, and integration. Museveni told the officers that for decades, the national resistance movement has been pushing what he called the historical mission needed by Uganda, East Africa, and Africa to catch up with the developed world. He warned that without integration, African countries will remain too small to compete or defend themselves against future threats. Museveni told the officers that patriotism and Pan-Africanism are key to building markets for Uganda's products and creating jobs. The commandant of the Senior Staff College, Brigadier General Michael Kabango, thanked the president for addressing the officers, saying his leadership has guided Uganda on the path of peace, stability, and prosperity. The current intake has 52 students, including 38 Ugandans and 14 officers from Burundi, Egypt, Kenya, Malawi, Rwanda, South Africa, South Sudan, and Tanzania. The officers started the course in July 2025 and are expected to graduate on July 2nd, 2026. Police have advised members of the public to refrain from taking part in mob justice, warning that anyone involved can face criminal charges. According to Achilles Twebembere, the Regional Community Liaison Officer, KMP East, individuals who find themselves targeted by a mob should immediately seek refuge in a safe place. He said personal safety should be first priority, adding that victims may use reasonable means necessary to protect themselves while attempting to escape danger. The police annual crime report for 2025 revealed that a total of 950 people were killed through mob action in 2025. This was a 6% decrease from the 1,016 cases recorded in 2024. North Choga registered the highest number of mob-related killings with 73 cases, followed by KMP East with 71 and West Nile with 68. In the Central Region, Luwero recorded 30 cases, Nagarama Division 22, Mukono 20, Katwe Division 19. Police records further indicate that of the 950 mob justice cases reported, 229 case files were submitted to the Directorate of Public Prosecution. Only 2 convictions were secured, while 183 cases remained under trial by the end of the year. Meanwhile, statistics point to reduction in cases. Recent incidents suggest that mob justice remains deeply rooted in some communities. Earlier this year, Ugandan rugby player Sydney Ogonjo became one of the latest victims of mob violence, drawing national attention to the dangers of taking the law into one's own hands. Several suspects were arrested in connection with the incident as investigations continue. Despite hundreds of deaths linked to mob justice, in 2025 only 2 convictions were recorded, raising concern about accountability and access to justice for victims. The creation of 10 new cities in 2020 sparked celebrations and raised hopes across the country. While some attained city status, 5 proposed cities remain in uncertainty 6 years later. As government prioritizes service delivery, questions persist over the fate of the pending city proposals. The year was 2020 when 7 and later 3 new cities to make 10 were proposed. Meant to take effect in July of that year, these were debated. Members of the 10th Parliament disagreed and later agreed to pass the new local government administrative units. The cities that were approved celebrated, with oppositions agreeing with government, while those whose cases were still pending equally had hopes. 6 years later, the fate of Wakiso, Entebbe, Moroto, Kabale, Nakasongola hung in balance. The question is, what became of these proposed new cities? This explanation clearly shows that certain and creation of new local government administrative units is not a priority for now. But as the induction of new members of cabinet goes on in Chankwanzi, local governments remain the main drivers of effective service delivery. The pending proposed cities of Wachiso, Entebbe, Moroto, Nakasongola and Kabale were meant to become effective 1 year after the creation of others. Former Arrow Boys fighters who had aligned with the UPDF to eliminate the Lord's Resistance Army in Teso have appealed for government support after over 2 decades following the end of the insurgency. They insist that the promises made after the operation remain unmet. They raised their concerns during a commemoration event in Amuria district honoring the victims of the LRA tragedy. It's over 20 years since the combined force of the Arrow Boys and the UPDF drove out the Lord's Resistance Army rebels from Teso sub-region. Teso sub-region is peaceful, but former Arrow Boys fighters appeal for government recognition and financial support, stressing their vital role in restoring peace. Former Minister for Works and Veteran Affairs Musa Echweru urged government to address former fighters' concerns, noting President Yoweri Museveni recently pledged financial support during his campaign engagement. The concerns were raised during a commemoration ceremony held in Amuria district. They reminded government of a pledge to build a technical institute honoring those who died during the Lord's Resistance Army attacks in the region. Echweru also urged renewed attention to the plight of former abductees taken by rebels and later returned, many still enduring stigma, discrimination and social exclusion. And with that, we come to the end of our local stories. Let's see what Julie has for us on the international scene.
Right, thank you very much, Robert. And looking at the international scene, we're starting off with the world's first trillionaire, and that is Elon Musk, who is, suing a German public broadcaster. The world's first trillionaire has announced legal action against German public broadcaster ZDF for a report that he said misrepresented his position. The broadcaster had highlighted Musk's role in encouraging anti-migrant protests in Northern Ireland that turned violent. Legal action is being taken against ZDF for their outrageous lies, Musk said in a post on his social network X on Monday. Northern Ireland saw nights of riots last week after a high-profile stabbing incident. The suspect, a migrant from Sudan, was charged with attempted murder. Hundreds from people rioted in the streets of Belfast, going door to door shouting "Foreigners, get out!" and setting cars, homes and businesses on fire. The protests were encouraged by British far-right extremist Stephen Yaxley Lennon, better known by the pseudonym Tommy Robinson, as well as Restore UK founder Rupert Lowe. Now moving on, a shallow 6.7 magnitude earthquake struck Indonesia's central Sulawesi island on Tuesday, the U.S. Geological Survey said, with no immediate reports of casualties or damage. The quake hit southeast of Palu, central Sulawesi province at 10:27 a.m. There was no risk of a tsunami. However, patients in several hospitals evacuated the building to ensure safety. The initial earthquake was centered 43 kilometers east-southeast of Palu. The U.S. Geological Survey said it was about 10 kilometers deep. It was followed by several aftershocks, with the strongest being 5.2 magnitude. Footage emerging from the affected area showed heavily damaged structures with partially collapsed roofs, shattered walls and scattered debris. The National Disaster Management Agency said information on the extent of the damage, as well as possible casualties or displaced residents, was still being collected. Now finally, in Africa, Kenya will pay compensation to almost 2,000 victims of protest-related human rights abuses, President William Ruto said on Monday, marking a rare national reparations process outside the judicial system. Violent protests in the East African nation have left a trail of destruction in which hundreds of people have died, were injured, or suffered business losses. In the most recent incident, 2 demonstrations over an Ebola quarantine center for Americans left 3 people dead and dozens of others injured. The victims of human rights abuses will begin receiving compensation from next week after vetting by the state-funded Human Rights Commission. The total payout is expected to total $15 million. Ruto, speaking during the release of a National Reparations Framework report, said the compensation represents a state acknowledgement that harm occurred and was not an admission of guilt. Dozens of people died and hundreds of others were injured in an annual anti-government protests against increased taxes in June 2024 and June 2025. Property worth millions of dollars was destroyed in a series of protests that the government said were infiltrated by criminals. Ruto said the compensation was not the price of life or pain or of loss, and that should not be seen as a reward for violence or criminality in a country where violent protests are very common. Well, that brings us to the end of what we have on the global scene this morning, but it's about that time we also looked at what the dailies carry this morning. Robert, what does the New Vision have?
Very interesting stories here. MP's hefty pay package leaks. Well, according to the New Vision, what I've seen, the best place to work is Parliament. As you're a member of Parliament. So, Julie, prepare which constituency?
Machindi Sabaga.
Machindi Sabaga. Start warming. we shouldn't be left behind. We shouldn't be left behind. When you look at what the New Vision has, then government to recruit 600 for referral hospitals. Museveni calls for political integration to tackle security threats, and home cuts off as Bukasa port construction begins. But sometimes I don't understand how some Ugandans acquire this land. I'll tell you a story of Bukasa land and how I survived. I'll tell you that story. But it was so obvious.
Right. Someone
calls and says there are free plots here, this amount of money. Head teachers fail public service competency test. Wow. Head teachers are failing. UNEB registers over 1.4 million candidates for 2026. And a picture there of of Entebbe raid survivors return 50 years later.
The memories, yeah?
Now, allow me quickly move to the Daily Monitor. High stakes as ERA starts search for Chief Executive Officer. And now Bad Black ex-lover convicted in the UK of global arms trafficking. Wow. But don't we need him also here for certain issues? Now, NGO Bureau boss sued over closure of civil society groups. And pressure mounts for Lukwago release. Then the Lizard has something to say here. High stake as ERA starts a search for chief executive. He says everybody wants to be a boss. And well, I'll leave it at that for now.
Well, isn't that true? The Lizard has a point. Everybody wants to be a boss. But the purpose, the question is, are you serving or are you ruling? Anyways, let's look at the Citizen. And the Citizen there, bank agents' key role in Tanzania's financial system. That's the headline in the Citizen, coming from Tanzania. Now, other stories to look at: NMB Bank boosts digital banking drive with Mkononi super app, and 600 billion shillings steel plant in the pipeline. Also, crack down on child labor in mines as government targets full school enrollment. And MPs call for reforms, spending cuts to make 62.3 trillion shillings budget work. Here where Tanzania is, their budget is at 62.3 trillion shillings.
When we look at currency power and convert that, what is that in Ugandan shillings? Yours may be 84.39, but when you convert that of Tanzania, into Ugandan currency. What do you arrive at?
Right. Finance bill pressure, that's in the Daily Nation as a headline. And also, lawmakers clash in the House over proposed tax measures as the committee's recommendations. Also, Maraga back push for joint opposition flag bearer. Former First Lady siblings fight brother's widow over millions. And the former First Lady here is Margaret Kenyatta. That is being...
Is that news in Africa?
Wow, interesting. It is. Now, the dailies come to the end. When we get back, we'll be getting in touch with the Right Honorable Richard Tuodong to give us an insight of what's happening at the Chankwanzi retreat of the cabinet ministers. One thing we know for sure is the fact that the president has a tough tone. Of this Chisanja, no sleep, even in imploring his cabinet ministers. But what exactly does the picture look like on ground? We'll be getting back with that conversation. Just make sure that you save the number 0709602592. It's the best way you can be part of the conversation. But also follow at UBC TV Uganda on X, and the hashtag for all conversation is hashtag UBCGMU. For now, let's have a short break and we'll be right back.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala, this is Good Morning Uganda.
When Jesus said yes, nobody can say no.
A very good morning to you. It's a Wednesday, midweek it is. Welcome back to yet another new day of opportunities. It is Good Morning Uganda here on UBC TV. Now, the race for the Kalangala District Woman Member of Parliament seat has entered a critical phase, while the ruling National Resistance Movement and the opposition, led as by the National Unity Platform, is intensifying campaigns across the island district ahead of polling day. Political activity has increased on the side following the nomination of candidates by the Electoral Commission to contest in the by-election triggered by the death of former woman member of Parliament of Kalangala District, Helen Nachimuli, earlier this year. But staying in the same spirit of by-elections, the Electoral Commission will deploy more than 100 EC officials to oversee Chikube District LC5 by-election scheduled for Thursday this week, which is tomorrow, June 18th, 2026. The by-election follows the death of the incumbent district chairperson, Peter Banua, on April 4th, 2026 in a major road crash. And definitely, as UBC TV, will be bringing you all the updates. My name is Julie F. Nantaba with Robert Chiravo Nyonyintana this Wednesday morning as we come to you live from the Now Avenue at UBC TV. Robert, good morning.
Lovely morning to you, Julie.
How are you? You're quite mellow.
Observing so much going in the country.
Right.
You know, there is one thing I used to enjoy when I was still a reporter or a field person, something I love so much. And I remember people who used to say, no comment for now. There are issues, and when the police spokesperson first says, right now I don't have the information, but when I get it, I'll comment. Now, some of those things, you know, they are not issues for you, but they're happening in the country, and we are seeing and following. They have some light moments in them despite being critical situations, and they have so much lessons to learn. But also I think today PLU will be carrying out the handover ceremony as the chairman of the league directed that have the swearing in of those members. So we are optimistic today that will happen. And also, ministers are undergoing a retreat. There is one I enjoy, and every time I see cameras in front of her, I'm excited to hear what she's going to say. Honorable Namere. Indeed, she said NRM stock Empia. She'll always have something when you go to her, find a clip somewhere. And this time, she was hitting someone. I'm like, yes, I think we really lacked someone from the NRM, educated, learned, but who can address some of these pokings from the other side.
Very interesting. You remind me of a tweet that I read, an ex-post that I read from one of the celebrities around Uganda, who was speaking about her and saying that Uganda, she can single-handedly, as a woman, handle an ex-war.
You know, there was a time when the boat was not balancing. Some side, I think, had diplomats or lacked people who could outwardly come out and address the other. When they throw insults.
I don't know if it's the right term to use, but because it's what I have as the choice of words available to language. I don't know if it's, you're saying that with the diplomatic side of things, we lack people who could go ghetto.
Now this one comes bare knuckle.
She goes ghetto.
Bring it on, I bring it on. And at the end
each other and
the winner takes it all.
Interesting. On that note, let's have a look at what we have in the updates this morning. We're looking at the local scene, foreign scene, the dailies as well therein, starting off with matters local scene.
Now, President Museveni has called for political integration in East Africa and Africa as a whole, saying it is the only way the continent can prepare for future security threats. The president, who is also the commander-in-chief of the armed forces, made the remarks while addressing army officers at the Senior Staff College in Kimaka, Jinja. President Museveni used this lecture at the Senior Staff College in Kimaka to speak about Africa's historical challenges, security, economic transformation, and integration. Museveni told the officers that for decades, the national resistance movement has been pushing what he called the historical mission needed by Uganda, East Africa, and